I didn't plan for any of this to happen. If someone had told me that a weekend camping trip would change everything I believed about love, loyalty, and friendship, I would have laughed. But that's the thing about the moments that alter us, they never come announced. They arrive quietly, wearing the disguise of normal days. My name is Ethan, and this story begins in the middle of a slow unraveling. For months, my boyfriend Liam and I had been living in the same apartment but different worlds. We still shared a bed, still said good morning, still texted each other small reminders, milk, keys, dinner, but the warmth behind those words had thinned. Our love had become practical, polite, and tired. Liam worked long hours at the firm, always chasing deadlines that kept him out late. I told myself it was temporary, that the distance would pass. But every evening when I ate dinner alone, every time I scrolled through his unread messages, I felt the quiet space between us stretch wider. The man who used to kiss me mid-sentence now forgot what my laugh sounded like, when Ryan, my best friend since university, called me out of the blue and said, "You need air, Ethan. Come camping with me this weekend." I didn't hesitate. Maybe I should have. Ryan was everything Liam used to be, reckless, charming, loud in the best way. He had this way of turning even silence into something alive. Back in college, we'd been inseparable. He was the first person I ever came out to. He'd hugged me, grinning, and said, "Took you long enough." After graduation, life had pulled us in different directions. Now, hearing his voice again felt like a spark in a cold room. "It's just 2 nights," he said. "No work, no city, no expectations. Just you, me, and bad instant coffee." I told Liam that Ryan had invited me camping. He barely looked up from his laptop. "That's good," he said. "You've needed a break." His words were kind, but his eyes stayed fixed on the screen. Something in me folded quietly. The next morning, Ryan's car pulled up outside my building, sunlight catching in his messy blonde hair. The sight of him made me smile in a way I hadn't in months. He leaned out the window, grinning. "Still alive, I see. Let's go before you change your mind." The drive out of the city felt like exhaling after holding my breath too long. Music filled the car, old songs from when we were 20 and thought the world was waiting for us. Ryan sang off-key, tapping the steering wheel, laughing every time I tried to join in. Somewhere between the highway and the dirt road that led to the forest, I realized how much I'd missed him. His ease, his unpredictability, his ability to make everything feel possible. When we reached the campsite, the air smelled of pine and river water. Ryan parked beside a clearing overlooking a still, glassy lake. The world felt paused, no phones, no noise, just the wind threading through the trees that we unpacked in comfortable rhythm, teasing each other about who was worse at setting up a tent. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Ryan started a fire, the flames painting gold across his face. We ate canned beans and cheap sausages, laughing at nothing and everything. Then, as the night deepened, the conversation changed shape. He asked about Liam. I told him the truth, the quiet dinners, the long silences, the feeling of being invisible in my own home. Ryan listened, really listened, the firelight catching in his eyes. "Ethan," he said softly, "you deserve to be happy, you know that?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed it. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was heavy. The kind that hums with things better left unsaid. Ryan poured more wine, his hand brushing mine when he passed the cup. I didn't pull away. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Above us, the stars seemed impossibly close, like they were leaning in to listen. The forest around us felt infinite and private. Ryan leaned back, looking at the sky. "Remember that time we got lost hiking in Wales?" he said, smiling. "Yeah," I laughed. "You swore you knew the way." "I did," he said, glancing at me. "Just not where it led." His words lingered longer than they should have. Later, when the fire had burned down to embers, Ryan stretched out beside the tent and said, "You ever wonder how you end up somewhere you never meant to be?" I didn't answer. I just watched the sparks fade into darkness, knowing, though I couldn't admit it yet, that I was already standing at the edge of something I wouldn't be able to undo. I woke before dawn, startled by the unfamiliar stillness of the forest. The air was cold, wet with dew, and the only sound was the soft rustle of water against the lake shore. I tried to close my eyes again, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed fragments of last night, the laughter, the wine, and Ryan's quiet question that had lingered in the air like smoke. You ever wonder how you end up somewhere you never meant to be? I sat up, unzipping the tent flap. Outside, the fire had died to a faint glow, the coals pulsing weakly under a bed of ash. Ryan was sitting by the water's edge, shoulders hunched beneath a blanket, staring out at the reflection of the fading stars. I hesitated, then stepped out, wrapping my jacket tighter around me. He turned when he heard my footsteps. Couldn't sleep either. His voice was gentle, almost a whisper. Not really, I said, sitting beside him on the cool ground. The smell of pine and smoke clung to the air. For a while, neither of us spoke. The horizon was softening to gray, the first color of morning pushing through the mist. Ryan picked up a stone and skimmed it across the water. It skipped 3 times before sinking. You ever think about leaving? He asked suddenly. Leaving what? Everything, he said. Your life, your city, your routine. I thought of Liam, the silent dinners, the polite smiles, the ache of something once beautiful slipping into habit. Sometimes, I admitted. But I wouldn't even know where to go. He smiled faintly. You always overthink everything, Ethan. Maybe that's why you feel stuck. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. He wasn't wrong. Ryan shifted closer, his knee brushing mine. You remember the night before graduation? He asked. You said the scariest part of growing up was that people stop seeing you for who you are. I said that. I laughed softly. God, I was dramatic. You were honest, he said. And I think you still feel that way. Something inside me tightened. I looked at him, and for a second, it was as if the years between us vanished. He looked the same, messy blonde hair, that half-smile that always felt like an invitation. But there was something new in his gaze now, something searching. That he reached out, his hand finding mine. It was a simple touch, but it sent a tremor through me. I should have pulled away. I didn't, Ryan, I started, my voice barely audible. He didn't move. You don't have to say anything, he whispered. I hate seeing you disappear. The word struck deep. For months, I had felt unseen, unheard, quietly fading into the background of my own life. Now someone was looking at me, really looking, and it felt both dangerous and necessary. The forest seemed to hold its breath. The world had narrowed to the sound of our breathing, the distance between our hands, the small, trembling moment before a choice. When he leaned in, it wasn't sudden. It was inevitable. His lips met mine softly, hesitantly, like he was waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. My heart pounded against my ribs, a rhythm of guilt and longing tangled together. For a fleeting instant, I felt alive again, wanted, seen, touched, not out of obligation but desire. But even as I kissed him back, the image of Liam flashed through my mind, the curve of his smile, the steadiness of his love, the way he once whispered my name as though it meant something sacred. That I pulled away first. My breath came uneven. This is wrong, I said, though the words felt thin, fragile. Ryan didn't argue. He just looked at me with quiet sorrow. I know, he said. But it doesn't feel like a lie. We sat there, side by side, not speaking. The air between us was thick with what had just happened, and what couldn't be undone. When we finally went back to the tent, Ryan fell asleep quickly, his face calm in the dim light. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the sound of his breathing a reminder of what I'd crossed. My hands still trembled, as if they remembered what my mind wanted to forget. That I told myself it was a moment of weakness, that I'd leave it buried here, among the ashes and trees. But the guilt was already blooming, slow and certain. I knew it would follow me home. Outside, dawn was breaking. The birds began to sing, their voices sharp and bright against the heavy quiet inside me. The world was waking up, but I felt like something inside me had gone still forever. The morning light crept across the apartment like a truth that couldn't be ignored. It filtered through the blinds in thin, accusing lines, tracing its way across the counter where the wine glasses still sat, half empty, still glistening from the night before. The air smelled faintly of rain and something heavier, something unspoken. Ethan woke early, though he wasn't sure he'd ever truly slept. His mind replayed every moment in fragments, the candlelight, the warmth of Lucas's hand, the silence that had followed. Now, in daylight, it all felt fragile, like a secret already threatening to collapse under its own weight. That he moved quietly through the kitchen, afraid of sound. Every small noise, a clink of a spoon, the hiss of boiling water, seemed amplified in the stillness. He poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter, watching the slow rise of steam. The first sip burned his tongue. He welcomed it. Pain, at least, was certain. Lucas appeared a few minutes later, barefoot, hair slightly tousled, wearing a plain t-shirt that somehow made him look more unfamiliar than ever. He paused in the doorway, and for a long moment neither of them spoke. "Morning," Ethan said finally, voice low. "Hey," Lucas murmured. He hesitated, then poured himself coffee. His hands were steady, his eyes were not. They stood across from each other like strangers at a crime scene, both aware of what had been taken and what couldn't be returned. "I didn't mean for last night to happen," Ethan said. The words were flat but honest. Lucas nodded slowly. "Neither did I." He looked up then, eyes soft but steady. "But I don't regret it, Ethan. I can't." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, the confession landing heavier than he expected. "That makes it harder." "I know." They let the silence stretch again, both clinging to it as if words might shatter what little calm remained. The front door clicked open suddenly. Daniel's voice filled the hallway. "Ethan? Power back yet?" Ethan froze. He hadn't expected Daniel home until Sunday. The scent of his cologne, sharp, expensive, seemed to slice through the air. Lucas set his cup down quietly and stepped back. "I'll be in my room," he whispered, slipping away before Daniel appeared. Daniel entered, brushing rain from his jacket. "God, it's freezing out." "Missed you," he said, leaning in for a quick kiss that Ethan couldn't quite return. His arms wrapped around Ethan's shoulders, but the gesture felt rehearsed, out of rhythm. "You're home early," Ethan managed. "Flight got bumped." "Figured I'd surprise you." Daniel smiled, though his eyes stayed on his phone. "Everything okay here?" "You look tired." "I didn't sleep much," Ethan said, which wasn't a lie. Daniel wandered around the living room, complaining about traffic, about work, about how the power outage had messed up his hotel plans. He didn't notice the tension in Ethan's shoulders or the faint tremor in his voice. Lucas emerged briefly to grab his keys. "Morning, Daniel," he said, polite but distant. Daniel nodded, barely looking up. "Hey, man." When Lucas left, the door shut with a soft finality. The quiet that followed was unbearable. Ethan watched Daniel unpack his suitcase, the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this 100 times. The motions were familiar but void of intimacy. Something inside Ethan cracked, not anger, not relief, but something quieter. Acceptance. That afternoon, when Daniel left for a meeting, Ethan found Lucas sitting on the building's back steps, a cigarette burning low between his fingers though he wasn't smoking it. "I can't stay here," Lucas said, not looking up. "It's not fair, to either of us." Ethan sat beside him, the cold metal railing biting at his palms. "I know. I wouldn't ask you to." Lucas glanced at him then, eyes tired but kind. "I meant what I said this morning. I don't regret you. Even if I should." Ethan managed a small, pained smile. "Maybe we both needed a reminder that we still feel." "Maybe." Lucas flicked the cigarette away. "You'll figure things out with him." Ethan exhaled, the breath shaky. "Or I won't. But I'll stop pretending it's working." When Lucas stood, Ethan didn't stop him. Their goodbye was wordless, a touch on the shoulder, a lingering look that carried both gratitude and grief. Then Lucas walked away, disappearing into the thinning mist of late morning. Inside, the apartment felt hollow but honest for the first time in months. Daniel returned that evening, full of stories and plans, but Ethan's responses were slow, detached. That night, while Daniel slept beside him, Ethan packed a small bag and sat in the dark living room until sunrise. That he didn't leave immediately, not that day, but something inside him already had. Weeks later, after Lucas had moved out and Daniel had stopped asking questions, Ethan found a note slipped between the pages of a book they'd once talked about reading together. "You deserve light that doesn't come from a storm." That he read it twice, then smiled, sadly, quietly. Sometimes, he thought, love doesn't die in a fight, it fades in silence, and sometimes, what begins as a mistake is simply the truth finding its way through the dark.